Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of PaizoCon. I am Maya, your community and social media specialist at Paizo. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm here today to talk with our lovely friends at Bkom Studios about their Pathfinder Abomination Vaults hack and slash ARPG. We have some truly lovely members of the Bkom team here with me today, so please introduce yourselves. Why don't you tell us what you do at Bkom, and tell us, if you want, you can tell us like maybe your go-to class in Pathfinder or Starfinder, something you find fun or interesting, or just a fun game you've been playing recently. Why don't we start with you, Stephen?
Hi, I'm Steve Bork. I'm a game director at Bkom Studios with a particular focus on narrative. And because of that particular focus on narrative, I think Bard is
Nice.
really what I would be aligned with nowadays, just to, spin a tall tale. That's my
Always fun.
ambition.
Jonathan?
Hey, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can go next.
Yeah,
Hey,
go
guys.
ahead.
So I'm Jonathan, art director here at Bkom. I've been working on Pathfinder for the past 2 years and having a blast on the project, and very happy to be here. As for a character that I might pick, it might sound very cliche, but I play a lot with Emery with our game, so having a ton of fun with her. I think she's my go-to on every playtest that we do. So
Nice. Can't go wrong.
yes.
And Wyatt.
Hey, I'm Wyatt. I'm the creative director at Bkom. Been here for 6 years. And in Pathfinder, I really like to play a fighter because you can do so much more with a fighter in Pathfinder than in other tabletop games. You can really build some cool things. So I love a good fighter in Pathfinder.
Yeah, fighters have incredible builds, honestly. And for me, I'm always like fighter adjacent in that I always go monk almost every time because I love the hand-to-hand combat, and just my fists are the only weapons I need. That's it. I'm done. We're ready to go. So thank you guys so much for inviting me to host this panel and get to know you and talk about this rad game for the video gamers in our community as well. I'm going to start. I've got a lot of questions here, and I'm going to start with some of them in order, but then I'm going to be rolling my lovely Paizo crochet D20 here to choose questions at random, because what's more fun than random? Crochet and random things. It's so much more fun. And if you're interested in doing this crochet or making one of these D20 yourself, I actually will be doing another panel in just a few hours at 11:15 Pacific time to teach you how to do that. So why don't we get started? Let's talk Bkom. Let's start with you, Wyatt. What inspired Bkom Studios to adapt Abomination Vaults into an action RPG specifically?
So looking back in my memory quite a while here, there had been this idea kicking around for a while between us and our friends at Paizo around kind of reminiscing about old hack and slash games,
Of course.
Gauntlet, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, and how that whole genre of hack and slash has kind of like been gathering dust a little bit, and how much we love action RPGs, how much we love those old hack and slash, the couch co-op, stuff like that. We were thinking about how much we miss that type of stuff. And we were at a point where we were thinking with Paizo, like, what kind of games would be great for us to do with something like Pathfinder? And that immediately came up because we had been reminiscing about it. Like, wouldn't it be cool to do like an action RPG or like a couch co-op hack and slash dungeon crawl with Pathfinder? Like, that hasn't really been done before. That's a really interesting opportunity. We looked at the skill set that we had at Bkom, and it made a lot of sense to keep exploring that and keep seeing what that would look like. And the more we started to explore it and flesh out what that could be, the more excited we got, until we decided together, let's do this, let's make this a real thing. And here we are, and we're on our way, and it's super,
and the perfect merge was born. That's awesome. It sounds like, honestly, it looks a lot of fun. I haven't played it yet because I want to, and it's not out. And I'm just sitting here looking at it like, can I play it? Like, when can I play it? I have also wishlisted it on Steam. I am one of the however many people you've got. I'm in that list. I also want this game. Stephen, why don't you tell us also how involved Paizo was in the adaptation process?
Oh, wow. Well, they're they're involved from, like as Wyatt said, right from the very beginning. So we work closely with the licensing team, with the story team, and with the community team to just sound out our ideas and to seek out really cool Pathfinder centric solutions or presentations for what we need in terms of action RPG game mechanics. If we want to go, we'll come up to them on a regular basis saying, hey, we've looked at the story, we've made these choices, we really like our barbarians to have these kind of options. For example, like there's the dragon's path or a barbarian path. What kind of dragons would be in the new scheme of things be appropriate for an Amory to know and follow? And then Paizo on their side digs around and comes back with an answer, and then we're able to put it into the game, knowing that we're treating the Pathfinder material, we're giving the Pathfinder its due place in the game to hook the players.
And honestly, thank you so much for doing that. I think it means a lot that you guys are working with us so intrinsically in the design of this game, because it means that a lot of people who have played Abomination Vaults themselves on the tabletop side, if they do want to come into this game, it won't feel like, oh no, the movie is nothing like the book. Like, it really is made with both teams involved so intrinsically that it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
With the careful note that the book is not a cheap walkthrough.
Right, of course. There are still more things you can do in the video game. There are still more things you can learn and discover and new adventures you can take, which it just makes it even better. It's like you can do this and that and have twice as much fun.
And one of the things I have to say is, like, Paizo is maybe the best, most fun partner creatively I've ever gotten to work with.
No way.
Because they are they're like, everyone is a gamer, right? Like, everyone gets it, everyone understands, everyone's passionate, everyone comes from this world. So the feedback we get, whether it's the story or the monsters, like, we get so many good ideas from the Paizo team. It's like kind of crazy. It's like not something that normally happens with like your partners. They're just kind of like keeping an eye on things, but we consider them like a big ally when it comes to like making the most authentic, best experience possible. They are like the best. So
thank you so much,
guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And why don't we ask Joe, before I start rolling around, I want to make sure we get one question from each of you, and then we'll start going at extra random. Joe, can you talk about some of the art direction, and how did you capture the tone of Abomination Vaults in a visual medium?
Yeah, sure. That's a big question. Generally, when I do art direction at the beginning of a project, I try to keep it as simple as possible. So I like to have one sentence or a group of words that might help dictate and anchor the visual of a project. So right at the beginning of this project, during the Kickstarter phase, I was looking at the Abomination Vault book. And obviously, Belcora is there on the front page, very like the main antagonist, right, of the game. So I really wanted to kind of capture a little bit of her in the art side. So as cliche as it may sound, I came up with the word dangerous yet beautiful. I think it kind of captures loosely what she is. And from there, we can kind of anchor a little bit the art direction, trying to make it feel like Belcora is very part of the game in every way possible. So even in the UI, we try to kind of have Victorian type of ornament. So she really like controlled the game visually as well as being part of that world. So that's one of the aspect that I like to do when I do art direction. Another big part, and I must mention it, is Wayne Reynolds, of course.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
I have it always close to the chest here, and he's being a big inspiration, not only for the character. He has a very specific style, but also for the environment. He's very colorful, and something I'm trying to capture as well in our game. He play a lot with dual color and complementary color, and something I try to add a lot in the environment. Like the background is from one color, the foreground is something a different color, and I think we can capture a little bit the essence of the Pathfinder as well as Abomination Vault with Belcora.
Yeah, and honestly, from what I have seen from the trailer videos and all the images I've seen of the game, it looks great. And that is such a hard thing to do because you're really taking the visuals from the theater of the mind and expanding them beyond into something that people have to visually engage with the entire time, rather than just in our books, we have chapter headers and we have characters, but it's not just like a constant visual stream. So to be able to bridge that gap between theater of the mind and a video game, a visual immersion experience, like hats off to you, Joe. That's really awesome.
Thank you. Glad you like it. And we want to stay to respect, obviously,
of course,
the IP. So it's a big part of our work here.
Of course. All right. Now we've asked everyone one question. So now here we go. I'm going to start rolling. I know that the viewers cannot see where the number lands, but I will pick the die up and show you. And I promise not to cheat. I swear I'm actually going to roll it and then pick it up and see what happens. Okay. We're at number 11. This one is for Steven. 11. This one is for Steven. With all the enemies and bosses available in the game, how do you choose what to keep and what to skip? Oh my God, what a great heavy hitting.
That's a huge question. I mean,
real big.
The book is chock full of all kinds of like really unique monsters. It's kind of like almost like a Noah's Ark. There's two of everything, and there's so much that we have to go for. So I have to put on two hats. Like the whole team has to put on two hats. Like the Pathfinder fan hat. What do we consider like the signature events in there? I mean, obviously, like all things related directly to Belcora, have a higher chance of getting in because they all relate to Belcora and to that story that we're trying to tell. And then game design hat. Okay, so we have skills, like the heroes have abilities and the players themselves have skills that they have to learn and master. And we need to have challenges that sort of scale up as you go. And sure, you can cheat a little bit and get a sneak preview of what's coming up a couple of floors ahead to get scared. You could replay earlier levels just to feel powerful, or because you had something you didn't unlock back there.
Right.
It's got to scale up. So we have to pick things that are like sort of practical and scalable, and that remain like the signature of Abomination Vaults. And that leads me to immediately want to start talking about like story, because there's so many different types of stories that Abomination Vaults, the campaign, supports. Right, it can be a straight up mystery, it can be a horror, it can be it can be in its own way a political thriller, or like a or the way, almost in a way that we're doing it, like a zero to hero type of start off at the ground floor and then learn what it needs to be hero all the way through. We want to pick monsters and enemies that touch on all those themes. So we've made a list. We've checked it twice, maybe thrice with Paizo,
right?
and then we put them in and we play test it and then we expand. So I don't want to spoil things, but with it, which is why I'm talking around the subject. But we're really looking at what gets us where we need to go in terms of gameplay and what gets us where we need to go in terms of telling a really satisfying Abomination Vault story.
Honestly, that sounds so balancing fandom between game design sounds near impossible, because I feel like you really want to just be like, well, I really like this and I really like this and I really like this, but then you get to the game and it's like, wait, hang on, what do we even do here? What have we done? Everything is broken. Oh no.
But and also, like, why do we want to do this? I really like this, but why and how and what do I learn?
Why?
And what can we do next? What have I learned from battling the Morlocks? Right. Oh, spoiler. But what have I learned? And how can I and what comes ahead that maybe builds on this in an unexpected and interesting way?
Right.
That's game design.
Awesome. All right, here we go. I'm going to roll another one. Da-da-da-da. Okay, so this was a 13, and then but we don't. We have 13, but I kind of want to cheat and just ask number 3. So I'm going to pretend it's number 3. Hooray! But I'm being honest about it. No one's surprised. So this question is for Wyatt, and it is: what were the first big creative decisions? Did I say this? Yes. What were the first creative decisions you made when converting this from a tabletop narrative to an action RPG format? So what were the first big choices that got made?
Yeah. So I think, at the very beginning, it was really figuring out, I think the first thing I had to do, going all the way back, when we said, let's start this thing and think about what the game would be. Back to the couch. Is what adventure are we going to use? What Pathfinder story are we going to build this around? And Paizo gave me the Holy Grail. Maybe I should tell them. They give me the Holy Grail. They give me access to everything that they have. I got
Ooh,
everything. So I was going through
nice.
every adventure, going through every book and scanning through, going online, doing research, what are the best adventures? What are people's favorites? What are the things that people want to see? And kind of then thinking the things that I thought would make sense in terms of the type of game we're making and zeroing in, going through phases of like showing all the ideas and trimming down, talking to Paizo, talking to the team until we finally arrived at Abomination Vaults.
Nice.
And we looked at basically what I had narrowed it down to was I said, we have to put our blinders on and get this down somehow because there's so many good options. It's insane. We said, let's find mega dungeons. Let's do a mega dungeon. And that brings it down. That was kind of where we got down to, where we had like 5 really awesome Pathfinder mega dungeons, ones with mad wizards and ones with fallen dwarven colonies.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, Abomination Vaults, it was new, it was shiny, everybody loves it, it's got horror, so we said we think this is the winner, and we looked at it, it's got the mega dungeon vibe, and it just felt to us almost tailor-made to be a hack and slash dungeon crawler. Like, it feels so close and so classic and retro in the sense of being that mega dungeon that we thought this is our winner, and everybody kind of agreed it was like a match made in heaven. So
nice.
I think that was the big one. That was the first big choice we had to make, was that, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of iteration to get there, but that's how we arrived on choosing Abomination Vaults as our story for this game.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could be like in the writer's room when this happened. This feels like I want like a soundtrack to like when everybody realized that it was Abomination Vaults, and you just hear like, I don't know, like the John Williams Olympic theme is playing, which, yeah, fun fact, John Williams wrote the Olympics theme, and like that's the music that's happening. That would be oh my goodness, that would be incredible. Sorry, I'm a film music nerd. I know too many things about John Williams and his exploits. All right, number 15. Let's see what this one is. This is a question for anybody, so all of you jump in and provide whatever answer you've got for this one. Which moment in the game are you most excited for players to experience?
Yeah, I can start on this one.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I don't have one specific moment. What I'm looking forward to is more like at the intention, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope, or I want the player to kind of recognize either important landmark when they play, or like a monster that they really like from the moment they see it on the screen, they're like, "Oh, that's Voluk. I know this guy." And
right.
This is something I really like looking forward to as the art team. So it's not something specific, but just something I'm looking forward to. So
yeah,
that's
that
pretty
familiarity of the players. That's really nice. Who wants to jump in next?
Steven, do you want to go next, or shall I?
Sure. I'm really excited for the last ability unlock, because that's when the players get to the level where they have all their options arrayed, and then they can start making some really interesting choices, and they go, "Oh, this snaps into that, which sets up my partner Harsk for this." Nice. And that's nice. A moment that I'm really looking forward to seeing happen in the game.
And what about you, Wyatt?
I think for me, so we have our 4 characters, which we'll talk about probably one of these questions.
Yeah, and one of these questions is one
of these. Each of our characters has sort of 3 builds we're trying to map out for them that give you a different play style on the battlefield. So not everyone can be everything, right? You can't turn Ezran into a tank, but you've got different builds for all the characters. Like you could take Kyra the cleric and build her more tanky or more DPS versus her core as like a healer. So we're gonna let players experiment and try these 3 different builds for each character. I'm really excited to see what people think about how we translated what's in the book into something that makes sense for an action RPG, which wasn't seamless. You can't just pick it up and drop it. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
But beyond just those people trying those roles and seeing what roles are resonating with, kind of experimenting, and in the same vein of Pathfinder, taking the classes and shaping them to be what you want to be. But what I'm very excited about is the mix and match, where you could take elements, some of the tanky build for Kyra, and mix it with some of the healing and build sort of like almost like, sort of a paladin-ish version of a cleric, where she's more of the frontliner, healing herself and maybe holding the front, or whatever crazy, the overpowered builds. the broken builds and the meme builds where you say everyone in our team is going to summon things or whatever it is, and it's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but I'm having so much fun. I'm super excited to see what players will cook up with all the abilities and the talents, the weapons, all the components, the runes that they're going to get to cook with to make all sorts of crazy builds for all 4 of the characters. I'm so excited for that.
PaizoCon, you heard it straight from Wyatt. Bkom wants to see the silly builds. Share with us all of the silly builds. Do it. And why don't we honestly transition right into the question about those 4 iconic characters, Wyatt? So who are the 4 iconics that players get to play in this game? And how did you go about selecting them for this adventure?
So that was another one of the first choices we had to make was characters. One of the things that, because of the scope of our game, that we needed to be careful about is if we start to have, we're not there in terms of our studio to have like the full Pathfinder, all the races and with all the classes and all the abilities. We need to start with something that we know we can really bring the full quality to. So with that, we thought, we've got this sort of hack and slash game where you have the 4 characters running through the dungeon, and we want to tell the story through those characters as they're fighting. So we kind of need them to have their personalities. We said, let's pick 4 iconics, and then we'll know what their stories are a bit so that they can tell those stories as you fight. So we said, let's pick 4 iconics, and then let's pick 4 classes that we think would create really strong archetypes that people would recognize if this is their first hack and slash, or they don't know a lot about Pathfinder. Maybe they don't know what some of these more advanced classes are. Let's pick something that's a little bit more familiar, because then they'll have the flexibility to customize. So we said, okay, well, who are some of the big names? Who are some of our superstars? So we were looking at, of course, we chose Amiri as our very famous barbarian. And if you played Kingmaker, then I know that you'll know Amiri from there. She's our barbarian. And she fills that fantasy of anyone who just wants to get up in the enemy's face and smash them for as much damage as possible. Right. So there's always someone who likes that. Maybe there always is. People. And then we said, okay, well, we need someone who can support. Let's bring Kyra, of course, as our cleric. She can kind of fill that team mom role, supporting, buffing, helping everybody else succeed. But if you want to switch her out of that role, you have the ability to do that. And then, of course, we have to have a magic user. So we went with Ezran, who's a super star, iconic as well. Have to have him. So he's going to be bringing different styles of magic that you can explore as the team wizard. And then finally, honestly, a little insider information, we were thinking really hard between like Mauricio and Harsk. And what we started to realize is, as much as we wanted to have Mauricio, because obviously then like it's Kyra's wife, it's really cool. Like everybody loves Mauricio. Rogues are really hard to do in the type of game we're making, because you don't really want like the character who's like sneaking ahead. It doesn't work with our camera, and it was creating like stealth, all of like too much stealth and all of that like sneaky kind of gameplay. We're going, this is going to be really difficult for us to do. And then we're looking at Harsk, and we're like, we need some short representation too. Let's get, we need a shorty out here. So let's get Harsk in there to represent. So we went with Harsk, and he kind of fulfills. There's always someone who wants to play sort of like the Beastmaster or the Archer, and Harsk is that person who wants to be the Archer. Like we've looked at in World of Warcraft, what's the most popular class? Hunter. And it's always been Hunter. So there's always people who want to shoot the bow and fulfill that fantasy. So we thought Harsk was going to be an awesome fit. He fills that more combat-y theme. So we went with him as our 4th, and he kind of fills that last role on the team as the range DPS archer guy. But of course, you can also, because he's a ranger, he can also get up on the front line and fight with his axes as well. So
Harsk can always stand up for himself. And I love also how this is kind of like the like alternate pop band, because we have like the God's Reign Quartet, which is Ezran, Kyra, Mauricio, and Amiri, and then we have the Abomination Vaults like alternate timeline quartet of Ezran, Kyra, Amiri, and then Harsk, just like right in. He's like the new lead singer of the pop band, like after the 3-year hiatus, and they're back and better than ever. Something cool. I don't know. I'm just making up stories at this point. That is really cool though. Let me ask another question. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, number 6. which I used the little inside of the circle and then put it next to the 6 so that it's very clearly a 6. And also, so I didn't use additional felt. It's all we're trying to use as little materials as possible. Oh, number 6 is another question. Wyatt, as much as I truly do enjoy talking to you, we do also have to talk to Steven and Joe. So I'll ask 876. So we'll get all 3 of those questions in, and we'll get some of them from everybody. So next we'll go over to Steven. Did any Pathfinder lore present unexpected challenges in terms of visual or gameplay adaptation?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think all of it. all of it's a challenge depending on which angle that you're looking at. So the iconics have their histories, they have their lore, players know things about the iconics, but we're starting them off at level 1. I mean, in our game, and not Pathfinder abilities, but we have that's a challenge, just to figure out how much of their previous stories to tell, and then we consult with Paizo to make sure that we stay within both the known and the known but unrevealed secrets about the characters. So we want to stay consistent there. Again, finding the right spin on the mechanics so everything feels respectful, like on the one hand, and surprisingly fulfilling. Surprisingly, like, I wouldn't have thought to handle Ezra in this way, but wow, I can't believe they pulled that off in Abomination Vaults. That's, sort of our goal. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that you don't feel like you had to study or do homework before you pick up this game. There will be Pathfinder newcomers to Abomination Vaults, the action RPG. So they're going to come in because they like action. They're going to see that this is going to be a great action RPG, and then they're going to be hooked. Like, if we do all our presentation, then they see all the great designs from Joe, and they see all our challenges from each dungeon. They'd be like, "Oh, tell me more about this world." So there's a challenge there of making sure that the lore feels accessible and not like, if I wasn't there, if I wasn't there 20 years ago when first edition launched, what's the point? We don't want you to feel like there's this wall. It's a mutual introduction at this party that is Abomination Vaults, between the tabletop and the action role play.
That's really good, because you're right. There are going to be a lot of people who are just like stumbling around Steam and see a really cool looking lady next to a demon and a worm. Like, this is their perspective, and they're like, yeah, I want to, whatever that is, I want to play that. So it's good that they're not going to feel left out, like they missed out on something because they didn't read whatever book however many years ago. They can still enjoy the game and just run in because they saw the cool lady and they thought that was a neat idea, and that's great. Let's see, Joe, why don't you tell us, what are the biggest challenges you faced while translating the dungeon into 3D? This is a bit, yes. What are they, Joe?
Yes, there's many challenges.
Yeah.
But I think the main one, it might surprise people, and it's not really related to the dungeon specifically, but it's readability, making sure everything reads well. And what I mean by that is, because it's a co-op game, hack and slash, you have always the 4 player that are sharing the screen. And there is all those mechanic where they synergize their VFX and their ability together. And quickly, there's a lot of thing happening on the screen with all the enemies and everything. So that's something we need to keep in mind on the art side from the very beginning until the end, making sure it reads well, that we don't overwhelm the player with too much VFX on the screen at all times, so they cannot really see the character and like strategize between each other, because we're not making Diablo, right? So we don't want everything to explode everywhere. We want the player to be able to play together, see what's happening, and strategize. So that's something, I'm not going to lie, it's been a challenge, but I think we're tackling right at the beginning, and we're learning as we go, for sure. So that's the main one. Aside from that, there is the converting the tabletop format to a hack and slash. Wyatt will probably talk a little bit more about that later, but on the art side, because it's so compact at tabletop, we really want to expand it art-wise, make everything a little bit more grandiose. And it's something that at the beginning, we were maybe a little bit more claustrophobic in the way we were building our level. So now we're expanding a little bit more, and it feels good visually. It helped a lot also with readability, which is a word I've struggled saying. But
that's great, though. That's good. And you mentioned, Wyatt, there as well, and I do want to tag into Wyatt now, because TTRPGs are usually played cooperatively, unless there's that one person at the table who just really wants to be the hero, as opposed to a lot of video games. You're playing like with one other person, or again, we have the one person on the team who really wants to be the hero. What can you tell us? Was the game always planned as a co-op experience?
It was.
It was.
So
Okay.
when we started this journey, like again, from the beginning, we were thinking about couch co-op hack and slash was like kind of where our journey began with Paizo, of even thinking about this and kind of reminiscing about it. And one of the things that Paizo, when we were talking to them, was very invested in is the idea that Pathfinder is built around the idea of adventuring together.
Absolutely.
And it's not about necessarily the lone hero. What makes Pathfinder great is that it's about the team working together, and that they wanted to imbue that into the games that they make. So we held that as a pillar, that this co-op element and the party element was essential. Not only, and this is where we get a little different from other games, one of our key selling points.
Oh, nice, yes.
Is that in these other games, if you were playing by yourself, it would probably just be you. But in our game, you always have the party, even if you're playing by yourself. So whether you're playing with no friends, 1, 2, or 3 friends, all 4 heroes, you're going to be running through the dungeon with your whole crew. So yes, we've designed it that it's not only co-op to play with your friends, but even if you're playing by yourself, you're co-op with your bot companions who will fill in, and you still get that party experience no matter how many friends you are playing with. And we've really been careful. It's been a big task for us to make sure that the game is just as fun playing with your friends, but you can also have that full feeling of the experience of like needing to work with your teammates to push the boulder or navigate the trap, that you can do that with the bot companions and still get all of those gameplay elements and all of that feeling, even if you're enjoying the game by yourself. So really building it for both audiences equally.
That's rad, honestly, and it sounds very difficult. There's so much going into this game. I feel like sometimes people don't realize just how much it takes to design a game of any kind, honestly, like video game, tabletop, whatever it is. It's so many little intricate details you have to think about, and they're all interwoven within each other, and one that is slightly off can literally just break the whole machine. So really, and it's really important, though, that we're still thinking about like the core values of Pathfinder while also making all of those decisions. That sounds really great for me, honestly. And earlier, since I skipped question 13, now I'm going to actually ask real question 13. And this one is for everybody. Did Bkom add twists to the book? What are the different things you added to the game that are not part of the book, and why? Now, granted, I know some of these things are going to be spoilers, and I know you don't want to go like super into a lot of the spoilers, because we do want to have people discover things when they're playing, but tell us as much as you can and leave us on the edge of the cliff. I'm ready to hang on the cliffhanger until the summer when I get to play.
We won't spoil. We'll be vague.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah, we did. We've needed to twist things and give it our own twist to make it work in this format. And I think one of the biggest twists that players are going to realize quite soon is, even if you've played through the adventure, we have a unique twist on the story and the floors of this mega dungeon, where you're not going to be able to use the book as a strategy guide to cheat through everything. It's quite different. And one of the first things that we did for the game that was absolutely necessary for making it an action RPG was in the tabletop format. As we all know, anyone who played a tabletop RPG, a combat that could take you an hour in tabletop, and our game might take you 30 seconds.
Oh,
right. So navigating and completing a chapter of the book might, 10 rooms might take you weeks to complete, but in our game, 10 rooms would take you 10 minutes to complete. So we've taken each floor of the dungeon that's in the book, and we have turned it up to 10 and then up to 11 in terms of the epicness, in terms of the scale, and the grandiosity, and Joe is the pilot of all of that. But like, we're thinking about all the rooms and all the encounters that we want to do and really blowing these things out. So you might recognize in the book that there's like that part of the book is like the library, right? In our book, it's like something much bigger than that, or what is like one little area that that the devil guy from the cover of the book, like we've turned that into a much bigger area. So we're excited for players to see how we've taken the ideas of these dungeon floors and grown them into something much more grand.
Rad. Does anyone else have anything as well? Yeah, tell us about the twists and the turns and the
twists and
whatnot.
turns and a bigger start. So we spent a lot of time talking about the Abomination vaults, but I mean, a lot of the adventure takes place in the village of Otari. So one thing that we've added, which isn't a spoiler, but from the start when we launched this campaign, is that we've added NPCs to the
Nice.
to a town sort of points of contact, and these NPCs like Lynn Fizzletop or Amelia Candlebright have their own stories and their own connections, like the existing mayor and garrison commander and Rin Savinci have their own connections with Abomination vaults, but these new characters also, serve a functional role in terms of like shopkeeping and quest giving and stuff like that, but have their own stories to tell and reveal, which gives us another angle on everything that's going on. At the top of that tower, all the way down below.
Incredible. We got whole new people, whole new stories. Joe, is there something else also? Another twist? Tell us about another fun twist.
But Wyatt summarized it so well, the epicness of it. That's like our big chunk on the art side. One thing that we do a lot on the project is we have those little vista that I like to call, where we have the camera like changing angles. So it's not always a top-down view. Sometimes it changes, and you really see like the scale and the whole environment. And for example, you might have a cool moment where you have a bridge and the camera zoom out a little bit and you see everything, and you really have a moment to take it in. Maybe this part is not in the book, but it just create a moment that I feel like the player will remember. Like you rest a little bit in between the fight, you're like full of adrenaline, and then in between of those fights, you have the big bridge where you really see the whole scenery, and maybe a little space for a narrative moment in there. I think it's going to be very, very fun.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Especially since you talked about so much work you put into translating this tabletop adventure from our minds into a visual story. It's so good that people get to have different angles to actually see this whole world that you spent all this lovely time working on and creating. So that's awesome. I'm glad it's not just like, oh no, here I am looking at this corner all the time. We can look at the corner. We can look at the cracks in the wall, we can look at the street, we can look at the everything around me, the leaves and the trees. Like, that's so great. I'm so glad they get to see every element of this world that you have created as well. And I think we've got time enough. I'm going to ask two more questions. I think I'm going to ask, and they're all going to be everyone answering questions as well, so we can get through everyone contributing to what makes this game so great. Let's see. Let's ask, how do you translate all the key elements from the game into reality, like monsters, the town of Otari, NPCs, and even each chapter? Steven, do you want to, or Wyatt,
you want to go
first?
first, talking a little bit about the narrative, kind of the big steps of narrative?
Yeah, I mean, so each chapter has its own story, and action is. In an action RPG, the action itself is the gameplay. So that's the big challenge, is to make sure that we fight the right kinds of things and we have the same kind of rising action in our drama, like how the heroes feel about where they are in connection with each other and their own individual hero journeys, as well as how far down below ground and how far into the story they've gone. And we want to make sure that and we're focused just particularly on that narrative bit where it's like, what's the essential element that we can take from the story in the tabletop, and how do we make sure that we don't stop the action, but we sort of like let it unfold in terms of banter as we play, a little bit like it's like Vermintide or Left 4 Dead, where you don't have to stop cold for a dialogue treat. It has its place and it has its moments and it has some surprising outcomes, but it's more fun to walk and talk all the way through. Action RPGs are games of constant motion and constant discovery. So we want you to feel that there's never a lost step where you're impatient for something else to happen. Something's happening all the time. So that's like a key guiding principle for those translations. And I can pay it back to Wyatt.
Yeah. I think on the combat, I'll talk to the combat side of things, which is, I would say, kind of what our process is. I think a great one to look at here is monsters, right? The first thing that we do is we look at the stat block of the monster. We look at that together, and we're trying to get inspired, but we're really trying to use as much of what we can directly from Pathfinder. So if we're looking at some kind of undead, like what are its abilities, what are its spells, what are its saves and its weaknesses, and we try to use as much of that as possible, and then we go, okay, well that gives us a good foundation. This ability maybe is not going to work as well for us, but then we think about also these, because we have a very active game, we always need to think about sort of what kind of abilities do we need to add to this monster so that it can fulfill its role on the battlefield. Like, there's so much more mobility that we think about. Does this monster need the ability to jump across the battlefield, or try to jump onto heroes, or have a dashing attack where they run forward and swing their daggers, or they disappear and appear somewhere else? Like, so we usually will like think about one or two moves we think would be really cool to add to a monster, and then we try to put that together. We work with the developers, the animators, to build all of those moves onto the monster, and then test them out and make sure, is it fulfilling its role on the battlefield, and is this fun? And if it's not fun, then we start over and try to find a better thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our flow, and then of course testing we want to test it, play test it, make sure that other people find it fun as well, and it's really just a matter of refining from there. So that's kind of what it looks like from the combat perspective.
And what about the art perspective too? Like, how do you translate all the key elements, especially since this question also asks about like Otari? So like, how do you translate some of the key elements of Otari into the game?
Well, for Otari, we have a lot of reference. We follow a little bit the same pipeline as Wyatt just described it on the
Great.
art. So we take a lot of reference. It's super important. Otari, we already have a lot to get inspired by. After that, we do concept art. So we do quick painting, see what it might look like. We often do 3D blocking. It can be like gray boxing really quick, just to get a feel of the layout of what it might look like. And then once we have the layout kind of, I don't want to say set in stone necessarily, but a rough idea of the layout, then we can go again, paint over on top of it, bring it to life. And once the whole team is happy with the visual and the layout, then we start the 3D pipeline. So this is where the hard work starts. A lot
where
of
you start like
artists.
really like whittling the clay in terms of in the 3D work of making the art into something real that the players are translated into.
Absolutely.
Man, it sounds so cool. So finally, for our final question here, I am going to ask everyone again, what's one piece of advice you'd give to other studios adapting tabletop games? Since this is such a huge thing that you guys have done, what is a piece of advice that you give to other people who are interested in doing something similar?
Stephen, would you like to go first, or shall I?
Yeah. You go first. You passed off the last time.
The piece of advice I would give is to listen very, very carefully to your players, because you're making a game for them, and we're not making a game for ourselves. And I think it's every creator's instinct is to design something for yourself. And I think that can get you very far. But at the end of the day, you need to really tune in. And if you're getting feedback that maybe something isn't quite right, really thinking about your audience's perspective and bringing them into the process so they can express that perspective before you ask them to purchase your product is an incredible advantage that we have in the modern era that didn't exist in the past. And I encourage everybody to take as much advantage of your audience, letting them into the design process as possible.
Nice. Very good advice. Stephen, what's up? Wow, give us some advice.
The advice then is, talk to the players, and then it sounds obvious, but play the reference games, play the game itself, and make sure that you have that. Put yourself into the player's seat as well. I mean, we're very player centric focus here at Bkom, so there's no surprise there. So get your, in the case of tabletop, get your dice, get your books out, and take it for a spin, because these things come to life in play. And you can read the rules, and I love reading technical documents, because game design, that's the major output, but it really only comes to life around the table. So see it, experience it, and catch that spark, and you're in good shape.
That's good. Joe, do you have any advice to give other studios for adopting tabletop games as far as art?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to be bold and creative and push the envelope. I think the community will appreciate it as long as you stay true to the essence of the IP. So as long as you understand what makes Pathfinder, from there you can try really pushing further. So it goes a bit hand in hand with what Wyatt and Steven say. We want to respect the community, but do our own thing as well.
Thank you guys again for working with us so closely on making a game that is new, but also familiar to people who have played our games before, but also exciting for people who have no idea what the heck is going on, because they're going to learn and have fun and find out. Yeah. So thank you also for joining me and our friends here at Bkom, everybody who's watching for PaizoCon. Thank you so much for coming to our panel. You can wishlist the game Abomination Vaults on Steam, and you can also follow Paizo on all of our socials. I think Facebook is Paizo Inc., X is @Paizo, Blue Sky is Paizo.com, Instagram is official Paizo, and we got our Tumblr back up and running too. We're officialpaizo.tumblr.com. We're everywhere. Follow the Bkom guys; they're wonderful, working so hard to make this great game for everybody, and we hope you all enjoy it.
Thanks a lot.
See you guys.